everybody. So we're all here for another Meet the Author session. This time, after 3, it's for the book, The Absolute Beginner's Guide to SysML 2, 1, 2, 3. We'd agreed ahead of time that everybody would hold their books up at this point. The authors would, and I don't know, these people. So we're all here to meet Tim and Christian. We've already know they can't be relied upon, but there we go. And you see, the joke I was supposed to do is welcome to the MBSE podcast, which is usually how I meet you on these online sessions. So we're here for the official launch of the Don't Panic, the Absolute Beginner's Guide to SysML version 2. And it's an absolute pleasure to meet the second best double act writing team on MBSE in the world. So it's Tim Weilkiens and Christian Muggeo. So Tim and Christian, welcome. Really good to see you both again. It's been too long, but there we go. So first of all, the book, of course. So really, sort of, why did you start to write it? What was the inspiration behind writing this book in the first place? Because there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of talk about SysML 2 at the moment, and there has been for many years. And to be fair, SysML 2, I think, was first postulated in about 1983 or something like that, or it seems like it. So why now, and what was the impetus? What made you write the book in the first place?
Well, in the first place, you asked us if we are interested in writing the book about SysML.
Oh, you just ruined the magic now. Yes.
So you were a guest in our podcast, and you had the idea. Well, what about a book, SysML 2 in the Don't Panic series? And my first impulse when someone comes with a great idea is usually to say, "Yes, let's do it." So, and even after thinking about it further, I was still in favor of this idea. So, well, it's easy to guess that I'm writing a SysML 2 book, a complete SysML 2 book, with all the details in many hundreds of pages. So I found it's a good idea to start with a 50-page book. And well, it's very challenging to write a short book about SysML 2. But that was the origin of this book.
I think almost all the authors that we've interviewed have said one of the most difficult things is getting it down to 50, 55 pages, and actually what do you leave out, and what do you get in. So what about the timing of the thing? Because as I said, joking aside, SysML 2 has been being talked about for many, many years in the MBSE community. So why is now the right time for it?
Yeah, so basically, if you're following SysML v2, the development, as you mentioned, it's going on for many years now. And Tim and I, we are both part of the standardization at the OMG. And
so you're involved in the actual specification of the language itself. So
yes, a little bit, and Tim more than me. What you could, if you followed all the development, you have seen that the maturity of the language is pretty high now. So if you are looking into the demo versions or in the preliminary publications of the language was quite stable for a while now. And so we said, okay, why not now? And it was important to us to say, bring out this book before the language is official. So this was one goal, and it took a lot of time, to be honest, longer than we expected for just 55 pages. But in the end, I think maybe we need a second revision, and maybe we have to clarify some things or correct some things which might be slightly different, especially what's towards the syntax of the language. But all in all, I think the book isn't wrong at all, even if there are updates.
I mean, one of the good things is about our publishing model at Syncosia UK is we have absolute control over it. And so if there are changes to be made because of the maturity of technology or changes in standards or whatever, then it's very easy for us to do an up version of the thing and of the book itself. So that was very good. So it's curious you say you wanted the book to come out before the formal language was released. What's the thinking behind that then? Because most people would say, well, surely we'll wait till it's all been agreed and then bring the book out. But was it just getting in there first, or what was or stirring up people's thoughts? What was the origin for that? What was the point behind that?
Well, I think it's important to have a book, a thin book like that one. It's really important for the community because there's nothing out there to get a good overview of SysML v2. You can read the specifications. It's I don't know, in total 2,000 pages or so, 1,000 pages. That's too much. And then you have some of these high-level overview SysML v2 papers about what were the key objectives and things like that. But a good language overview is not there. So so I think this 50 pages book is a good starter for many people, and it's the interest is growing in SysML v2 since 1 year or so. So more and more projects and companies are looking into the language now.
Yeah, you already also have seen the participation at OMG. So it's an enormous number of individuals and companies who were interested in SysML v2 because we all know we have our differences with the SysML v1 in many ways. And so the interest and the hope on the language is so big, and why waiting?
I mean, I must say, from my point of view, and as you said, it started off as, like I say, I think it was on the podcast, wasn't it? On your podcast a couple of years ago, and as you know, my main field is MBSE, and I was being asked by so many people, what do we know about SysML2? Where can we get some nice, succinct, reliable information? And I'll take into account, somebody's just commented, yes, read the specification, laughing their head off, because the specification is very impenetrable. It's you can't just pick it up and have a nice evening's light reading with it. And so, from my personal point of view, my selfish point of view, it's good for me to be able to point towards someone and say, look, you could read this in an afternoon, in a couple of hours. It will give you a good overview. And then you're in a position to make a decision. Do you want to pursue it or not? And Tim, like I said, you're writing the big authoritative book on this subject, but that's not an easy start point for people. And that's one of the origins of the whole Don't Panic series of books, is something that's accessible, that you can read quickly. And at the end, you're not going to be an expert, but you should be able to say, where do I go next? What's in it for me now? And is it worth pursuing? But we're still getting, to this day, an awful lot of interest in SysML2. So here's a question for you then. On the 11th of March, 2024, at 11 minutes past 1, what is the current status of SysML version 2?
So the current state is we run the finalization task force. So it's SysML v2 was adapted by the OMG last year, and now we do this finalization stuff. And the current plan is that we finally submit SysML v2 in September this year. So in September is another OMG meeting, and the plan is then to finally submit it. The OMG will vote on it, and then it's there. It will take a few weeks or months after the meeting before it's officially published on the website, but the main voting is at the meeting in September.
Okay, so we can expect version 2 of your book at the beginning of October then, this year, once everything's been finalized. So.
Maybe.
Maybe it's a big thing.
Okay. Fabulous. So I want to talk one of the things that interests me as an author as well is the way that people write, and I ask this to all the Meet the Author sessions. So, for example, my main writing partner, as you know, is Simon Perry. We have very, very different writing styles. So what we do is we sit down, we plan the book, we model the book, and we get clear what we're going to do. When I write, it's just a single monolithic. I start at the top of the page and I finish the page, and that's. Whereas Simon's a lot more, he plans a lot more. He'll go back and do many, many more iterations. Mine tends to be a single iteration, and then it goes to Simon to correct all my horrible dyslexia, spelling mistakes and typos. But we've got very, very different writing styles. And every time I interview somebody on these, I'm always interested, because I don't think I've found two people who write in the same way. So, Christian, what's your style, would you say? I want to ask you your style compared to Tim, and then I'll get Tim to ask his style compared to you, and we'll see if the two of you actually agree. So,
yeah. To be honest, I'm not the kind of text machine, so I am always struggling with writing. Starting from my thesis for my diploma thesis, it took weeks or months since I started writing. So it was quite similar here in this book. So I made my thoughts and I had my structure in my head, but starting writing was really, hell. But on the other hand, I also had the more formal topic in this book. Yeah, so I think
so
a reader.
Do you divide it by chapters, or do you write each thing together, or?
Correct. We divided it by chapters, and even we divided it by topic. So Tim did more the language part, and I did more the API part. And I think with this information, if you read the book, you might recognize it immediately, the two writing styles. And
I must say, when I first started writing it, there is very much, not in a bad way, not a negative comment, but there is, because the API stuff is quite a bit more technical, isn't it, than the language?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And we had some back and forth between Simon and me, and I wouldn't say he complained about this chapter, but
that's Simon Perry, who's the series editor to this. So let's say you have a lot of conversations with Simon. So
yeah. And to be honest, I reread my chapter, and I thought for myself, I don't know how to write it in another way, how to make something which is for machines. An API is for machines, not for speaking with humans. How do I describe this in another way than in a very practical and sometimes maybe a little technical way?
Yeah. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's the more technical, and like you say, the API language, it's aimed at machines, it's not aimed at people, so it's going to naturally be more robotic, if you like, and a drier kind of area. So so,
and for me it was the main target was to give people an idea what the API is about and what they can do with it. They should not be experts in the API, they should not be talking to the API in computer language, but they should get an idea, because the API is one of the big differences between SysML v1 and v2.
Yes, and I think that's it, isn't it? It is a big difference, and is it fair to say many people probably will never even notice it because it's sat in the background, but you need to be aware of it. You need to know it's there and to understand it at a certain level.
Right, and with the API, I think we overcome many of the problems, of the technical problems and the lifecycle management problems and so on we have in MBSE with SysML v1.
Yeah. Okay, so Tim, your writing style is obviously to give all the difficult parts to Christian, and for you to focus on the easy bits. So,
I do the easy stuff. As Christian said, we separated by chapter, by topics. So this was not a real collaborative writing that we wrote together, a single chapter or paragraph or so. And and personally, I write best when I'm on the move, so on the train, in the plane, in the cafe, in the evening, in the hotel bar. And I have always something with me to write with. Currently, I use an ebook with a pen. So I write 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and then regularly add the handwritten notes then into the manuscript when I'm back at my desk and with the laptop.
So you actually write by hand to begin with?
Yes, it's completely written by hand.
Yeah, and did you say, do you use because I've got a advertising remarkable thing that allows me to write and capture the text. Do you have a similar thing, or was it? Oh, there we go. Yeah.
It's an ebook with a pen, and I import the PDF on the ebook, and then I can do the updates or add further paragraphs to this, and then I send it back to my laptop and integrate the handwritten stuff and so forth.
Yeah.
And I do this since over 20 years. So not for this book, but I wrote many books, but it's the same procedure. So it's always with me, and I use every 10 minutes I've
Yeah, so
time
you
waiting
can
for a
just
bus or
capture
so.
your thoughts very quickly and then bring them all together. So
Yeah, I have so many ideas in my brain, so it's like a brain liberation. What is written down is sorted and thought through,
yeah.
and my brain no longer has to deal with it. So it's
So I guess the advantage of the ebook is you've got it with you all the time. You're not carrying around big reams of paper to
no,
scribble your notes
well,
on. So.
actually, 10, 15 years ago, I had paper with me.
Right. Yeah. So things have changed. So Christian,
Yeah.
how about you? Are you all high tech or are you an old keyboard warrior? So.
Yeah, I'm the classical keyboard warrior in this in this area, because as I mentioned, it takes a long time until I start writing, but then I'm writing half of the chapter or the whole chapter. So because I have so much in my mind, I structured everything. Sometimes I know single sentences which I want to bring in exactly this way. And this I'm doing on my computer and on the keyboard, and not every 10 minutes as Tim does. So totally different.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So and like I say, I always find that interesting because so many people write in very different ways. And so in terms of where you start off then, as I mentioned, when Simon and I write, we always create a model to begin with. And Paul Davis, another author who's on, for example, I know we've spoken before about mind maps. He's just mentioned a comment on this. So do you have this sort of common start point that you share between you? So some sort of model or mind map or something like that? Or how does that work? What's the origin of the information?
I think the model was the Google Doc,
Right,
yeah,
so
a common Google Doc. And the model was the document itself. So the rough structure and the chapters we did together, or we defined together, and we had a separate Excel file counting the pages or planning the pages. And that was our model.
Because you don't work together, do you? You're not in the same office. Despite what your background might be trying to tell us, you're not actually sat in the same room together today. So you're doing all this stuff collaboratively over the internet then, presumably. Yeah.
So the main starting point was the table of contents. So that was the agreement, and then we started with our chapters.
Yeah. And whose idea was the Batmobile?
I think it was Tim, right?
Yeah,
He knows the story about you, John.
Yeah, I saw your presentation in a Batman costume, so
You see, I learned a very valuable lesson when dealing with Tim and the rest of our friends in Germany is never make a joke with anybody from Germany when your personal reputation is on the line.
Yep.
Because for reasons of me saying something stupid to Cozy Germany, like if you get more than 500 people to sign up, I'll do the next talk dressed as Batman. And they got 800 people to sign up. So I had to. So read the book. If you've seen the book, there's an odd thing at the beginning that says this is based on the Batman lecture. That's the origin of the Batman lecture, is basically losing the bet with Germany in Cozy. So but I think that aside, it's actually a very good example because it's something that we can all associate with a car, for example, where anybody with a soul likes Batman anyway. So that should be that should be an interesting one.
Again, it was not easy to find a good example for this thin book, no? So
yes,
you cannot
and that's it. It's got to
deep
be
dive
high
into
level
the topics. So you need and everyone knows a car, so
Okay, so there's a couple of people who've been asking about what the contents of the book with. So what I'm going to do then, we don't normally do this, but as we've had a couple of questions, I'm going to mention each chapter in turn, and then you can comment on who wrote it and just give us under a minute about each one. So first of all, the motivation for SysML version 2, I think we've spoken about, but who wrote that? Was that you, Tim, or Christian? Was that you?
I think that was even me.
That was you.
Because Tim had so much to write in the middle part.
Yeah,
I think I made the first
yeah,
chapter.
That was you.
Or...
Yeah, you wrote the motivation version. Yeah.
Okay. And we got the this is the chapter that filled me with horror when I saw the title, The History of SysML. Yes, that's a convoluted story, isn't it? That's like lots of twists and turns, and it's like Game of Thrones, but the MBSE version, isn't it? The history of SysML. So
Once
there's
upon a time.
They're the sort of background areas. So the first sort of real sections are so the language architecture. So who wrote that section then?
That was me. Yeah.
Okay, so what was your motivation in starting with that? What did you mean by that, the language architecture?
Well, it looks behind the scenes, no? So not the diagrams or what people usually know from SysML. It's the background, so the meta model and meta model stuff. So it's really sophisticated. It was not so easy to put this in a small chapter. But I think it's important that real modeler knows what happens behind the scene.
Because if you look at the meta model behind just the original SysML, it's big. But particularly this one, because it's multi-layered, isn't it? More than SysML version 1. So there's a lot of information in that, and it's the structure, the backbone of it. And obviously, you could write a book that's 500 pages just on the architecture of the language.
Right.
So getting that down to 4 or 5 pages, I think was really good, and not an easy thing to do.
I think it was worth to mention because with SysML v2, you have a completely new meta model, and this was very important to mention in these few pages, because I don't know how much listeners are into SysML v1. You had the UML2 meta model, and we finally got rid of it. So many of the limitations we had were based on the UML2 meta model, and now we have kernel, something. It's a third standard besides the language and the API, which was developed in parallel, and is, so to say, the mother of SysML v2.
And I think that's a really good point, because it's not just an update on the original SysML. It's almost like a complete start again, almost, isn't it? Based on some of the same concepts and principles, but it really is redesigning from the ground up. And that takes us into, I would say it's probably the biggest chapter, which is the SysML version 2 features. So this is when we get into the structure, the behavior, the use cases, and the actual examples of the modeling as well.
Right. So I wrote that chapter, and I remember it wasn't easy either to find the right level to describe all relevant features of SysML v2, but it's a huge language.
And so which bits to put in and which to leave out again, because let's say it's such a big language, and you've managed that. I say it's the longest chapter. It's still only 20 pages. Obviously it's a short book, and bear in mind by necessity there's a lot of diagrams in it as well. So it's not even 20 pages of text. It's probably more like 10 pages of text plus supporting diagrams.
And since supporting diagrams supports graphical and textual notation. Where you have both, so it costs a lot of space.
So every time you mention something, you've essentially got two different ways to visualize it. Okay, and then we get on to Christian's main chapter, which is the API. So the SysML version API and services. Do you want to say a few words on that, Christian, without turning into ChatGPT? That would be great.
The API and services was my chapter. That's right. And I tried to give, as I mentioned before, I tried to give a little bit an overview and to leverage the use cases MBSE practitioners have already today, and where they have big problems because maybe they need one-to-one integrations from tool A to tool B, and you know how much it costs. It's expensive if it's either there. So this was the starting point to tell people there is a computer language or a computer interface now, and what can you do with it? And I think the most interesting part for me to write was when I gave the example how to communicate with the API. So it's quite on the last 2 pages of this chapter. where I really got into the JSON just to give people an impression what it means to talk to an API. So also to give a bad example, don't even try as a human to talk to the API.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and then one of the final chapters, which I think to my mind, bearing in mind my job, I think is the question that we're asked the most, is this migration from SysML 1 to 2. And the question that there's obviously this, well, how on earth do you do it? You've already just touched on this idea of tools as well, and how do you migrate between tools? But a question that I get very often is, why should we bother? You know, why should we move to SysML 2? Particularly if we've been working for many years in SysML version 1 and its variations, and we've got all this legacy knowledge there. You know, do we have to upgrade everything? Can we just upgrade some parts of it? Or, you know, is it worth doing it? You know, is there going to be value in upgrading?
Well, you must not upgrade everything, I guess. But at some point in time, you will get troubles with the tools, I guess, because the tool vendors will not support language as a SysML v1 anymore, and so that could be an issue. But you must not upgrade. Well, if SysML v1 is sufficient for you, then there's no need to upgrade it. And I think that many models will not be upgraded to SysML v2 because they are archived and not further developed, or the people are happy with SysML v1. I still know people that work with UML1, so the rational rows modeling tool, so it's still out there. But if you would like to move your models from v1 to v2, you can do that. So in the specification, there is a transformation from v1 to v2. It's a formal specification written in OCL, the object constraint language, to map SysML v1 to v2. And I'm pretty sure that some tool vendors will implement this transformation, so you can move your models to v2. It will definitely be not a one-click transformation, but most modeling models are wrong, I guess. So not conform to the standard, garbage in, garbage out. So the transformation rules are based on the standard, of course, but it's possible to transform your models to v2.
And I think you've just touched on another thing there, which I'm glad that you brought up before I did, Tim, which is tools again. So is it genuinely, you don't have to answer this, but we will judge you if you don't answer it. Is it genuinely within tool vendors' interests to allow you to migrate between tools?
Good question.
Because my experience of tool vendors is a lot of them want you to stick with their tool and not migrate to other people's, for example. So is there a kind of a conflict of interest, do you think, here, sort of commercially versus technologically?
Sure, there is. So I think that the chance is, or the decision the tool makers have to do is, do I still keep my closed castle and I still sell some 100, some 1,000 licenses, or do I open up and give MBSE and especially SysML v2 a chance to be mainstream in engineering, and after that I sell 10,000s or millions of licenses? So I think this is the decision they have to make on some in some place. And to be honest, the standard is there. So there is there is a chance that new tool vendors will appear and they start with this business model of openness and sharing of models. What do the old tool vendors do then? So this is a risk to not support it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The API enables a new kind of tools. So in the past, we have had these big full SysML editor tools, and we still we will see those tools also in the future. But in addition, we will see small tools specific for one task that access a SysML v2 model through an API. So for example, Tom Sawyer in San Francisco, they provide a pure visualization tool. So they have no repository, they access the API, or MG presents SysML v2 tools in PowerPoint. So it's PowerPoint that accesses the SysML v2 through the API. So that's a new kind of tools are are now available, and tool vendors must open the API so that those tools can access the model. And if they open the API, well, then they also open it for other tools, so companies can move from one to another. That's of course a side effect.
So you can see there's an opportunity here for true collaboration then between tools and true collaborative working. Because I think, to me, one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we have at the moment for the successful adoption of MBSE, and I'm not just talking about SysML here, but actually of MBSE, is a lack of or inefficient tool interoperability, actually getting tools to talk to each other. And so you think this could be, a partial solution for this then, or certainly a contributor?
Yeah, without that, MBSE or systems engineering in general is another silo in an organization.
Yeah, yes, and it's still very often perceived as such, isn't it? So, but there we go. Okay.
And nobody forbids the tool vendors to bring their tool and their repository behind a paywall, so a license. So this is even a chance for the current tool vendors to offer a repository, and they get more than only the SysML practitioners as a licensed user. They get also the simulation guy who accesses the repository, or whoever, some product managers who are using the MG PowerPoint
people, the managers,
the CAD people, correct? Yeah.
And even we've seen in projects the last few years, electrical wiring diagrams, things like that. How do they fit in? How do they? And so you see this then as a big opportunity, and SysML2 certainly being an enabler, or at least a partial enabler, to open up the tools and to make them less closed. And I think if that happens, which I truly hope it does, I think that could be very powerful. That could be a really I think it could be a game changer for MBSE, and certainly, as you say, make it a lot easier for people to adopt MBSE effectively. So
right. But as you said, that's only partly an enabler. No? It's in the end, it's only the language part. No?
Yes, and that's so that's why we say it's not. And I think still to this day, too many people think SysML and MBSE are the same thing, but the world's full of people like that, isn't it? So, but there we go. So, in terms of the future, then. So, first of all, I'm going to ask you the future of SysML2, and then I'm going to ask you your sort of personal futures as well, and where you're going with this, because I know you're both busy with other writing projects, with training projects, and I know you're both appearing in all sorts of webinars and conferences. So, where do you see the future of SysML version 2? Is it going to continue to evolve over time, or have they got it 100% right?
It definitely will evolve over time. So, well, we plan to publish version 2.0 this year, and it will not be perfect. We already know several issues where we know, okay, let's defer it to version 2.1 and 2.2 and so forth. And in particular, the new features of SysML v2 will create new ideas in the community, and maybe then will also create new feature requests for SysML v2. So so
until people start using it and give you the feedback, I guess you can't think of every application. So there is, if you like, then an active feedback mechanism then, so that as people are using it for different applications, that's an input to the language evolving.
And SysML v2, the same as SysML v1, but much better. And SysML v2 has this extension mechanism. It's more library based and not this strange stereotype thing. So it's library based. So it's easy to develop libraries for SysML, which can also be a standard. So Unified Architecture Framework is already working on that, and also other groups, but also other SysML v2 libraries can be developed, maybe domain-specific stuff, that we have an automotive library and so forth. So a lot of things can happen there.
Okay.
And the same is true also for the API. So yes, the API as it is now is great. So you have already features like branching and merging and commits and tags. So very similar to how you store and manage software. But there is still room for improvements. So we have nothing that we know from the PLM side. So we have no lifecycle statuses. So just because there is a version in the repository, and you know there is a previous version, nobody tells you up to now, is the previous version also valid? Can I use it? Or is it blocked because it has a major issue? So just to give one example, so lifecycle extensions could be one extension for the future of API.
Okay.
And another big thing is already on the stage. It's AI. We all know ChatGPT and so forth.
Yeah.
And since SysML v2 is a textual notation like a programming language, it's a perfect match with ChatGPT. And I think that will also be a huge impact on the language, but also on the way we work in MBSE.
So how can you envisage, because this is the question that comes up a lot now, is what's the impact of artificial intelligence on MBSE generally? So as you just said, you see that being a factor for generating SysML2 or for analyzing existing, or both?
You can easily generate SysML v2 with ChatGPT. And I think a very interesting scenario is that if you talk with ChatGPT, it responds with text, with natural language. And this is, of course, full of misunderstandings. But you can talk to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can respond with a SysML v2 model. Say, okay. And then you can validate, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. So in this conversation, in combination with models, I think you get rid of this hallucination issue in ChatGPT.
Yeah, because there's already some examples, isn't there, online with people using ChatGPT to sort of generate SysML version 2.
Yeah, there are already some companies working on that. No? They have ChatGPT as a user interface, but in the background they translate it to SysML v2 or other more formal models and do complete formal verification on that. So that's quite interesting.
So, Christian, what are your thoughts on AI?
Yeah, I'm totally with Tim's opinion. I think also the analysis of an existing model could be a use case. So especially when you have a really huge model and you want to be sure that you don't have a deadlock when function A and function B does this and that, and with these inputs. So FMEA stuff in a very early stage, all these things I can imagine powered by the AI, which makes it much faster than a human.
And what about, here's just a speculative question for you. What about applications like automatic document generation? So going from something more formal in SysML1, such as SysML2, into something that's less formal, like spoken English or any spoken language for that matter, to make it more human readable. Because we've already spoken, and in particular, Christian, you were saying, well, the API is intended for machines. But personally, I think there could be an application going the other way as well, and translating the API language, if you like, into something more accessible for humans for things like report generation and automatic document generation.
But you can use also AI for that. I did some experiments.
That's what I mean.
You can as an input, you provide a SysML v2 model, and then say explain it to me, and then you get an explanation of this, and it's good. Yeah. Of course, it's a direct, more or less a direct translation. It's still sophisticated text, no? So it's
and trying to make it sound more human. So So talking on the subject of translating.
For example, I tried this last week actually. I told ChatGPT explain it me to a 5-year-old boy or so, and then you get a very simple explanation of this complex state machine. So it was quite funny with a story behind that and so forth, and Pokemons and so. But it was.
Does it say go outside and get some fresh air, 5-year-old boy? So in terms of translating, there's also some more exciting news about the book. So we saw in the sort of middle of last year, another Don't Panic guide was translated into Japanese by our good friends and colleagues in Koji Japan. So they've taken it on themselves to translate some of the books. So we had our MBSE, our Don't Panic MBSE was translated into Japanese, which was is now available and is selling well. But also your book is about to be released. I think it's going to be finalized in May, so only a matter of weeks away now, into Japanese. So hopefully that's going to open up a whole new market for us on that as well, because we know, I'm sure it's the same in many nations, but in particular in Japan at the moment, there is quite a hunger for information on MBSE. So it's a good and in both cases they've approached us to say, can we translate this work? And so I think that's a really big step forward for us as in Koji UK in terms of our publishing, but also it just shows the appeal of these of some of these techniques, and in particular the SysML version 2 one. They approached us as soon as they heard that you were writing it, Tim. We had emails from them saying, can we translate this? And bear in mind, we only launched a book last sort of October, the SysML 2 book, and already they're saying no, the translation's pretty much done. They're just doing the finalization on it now. So that's very exciting. And also, this book will be unique in that it will feature not just a translation, but it's going to feature our first untranslation from English back into German. So how's the progress on that then, Tim?
There's still some work to do. So, well, we can translate it to German, of course. That's not the issue for us. It's a bit funny that we wrote it in English and now translate back to German.
So when you write then, do you write in German and translate, or do you write in English? How does that?
Usually I write in English. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was much easier for this book because all these Don't Panic guides, they have a slightly humoristic style in writing. So that's what I experienced in other books of the series. And it's really hard to write in this style in German. And it should not sound odd. So this is the main issue I have at the moment. So we used AI to translate it for first shot. And you can't read that, so it's horrible. And now I personally, or we have to do the decision: do we write it differently in German, more formal, maybe, because
more German,
more German.
Well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but maybe as one of the core concepts, you need to get people to understand humor. That would be the first one. So.
Yeah,
but it's interesting because with the translation and with all languages, you get the different cultural aspects coming through in them, and so so it is. I guess it is quite a challenge then to go back. I'm particularly going back to your native tongue as well. That hasn't occurred to me before. That must be quite strange, having written it in something that isn't your native tongue, then going back. So, when can we expect to see the German version then?
Oh, I think 2-3 months or so.
Done
with that.
It's not going to take as long as SysML 2 took, is it? So.
No. Yeah, writing a book about SysML v2 will take a very long time. So a complete textbook about SysML v2.
Yeah. Okay, so that's like I say, that's exciting. That's exciting news, and it's something we are encouraging with all of our books at the moment, and we're getting quite a lot of interest from the different Incozy chapters around the world to translate some of the other books. So who knows? We'll get it into some other languages as well as English, German, and Japanese, which is what we're aiming at the moment. So what does the future hold for the both of you? Then. So Christian, let's start with you. So what MBSE wise, SysML wise, what's in your calendar for the immediate future then? Are you doing much work doing this? Training, speaking at events? What are you doing?
Yeah. Therefore, I have to clarify my background, I think, and some of you might know, but some of you don't know that I'm working for a PLM vendor, a German-based, family-owned PLM vendor, and our boss was interested in MBSE for now over 10 years.
Yeah.
And this company supported one of the major MBSE research projects in Germany in these times. And this is how I was working at the university at this time, and this is how I met my later employer. Yeah, and of course I'm doing some standard PLM stuff, CAT, bombs, whatever. But on the other hand, I'm the guy in the company who is allowed to, go to the OMG meetings. So I will skip the next meeting now in March in 2 weeks, but I will be there again in June. Yeah, and I have several demos or proof of concepts on my side where I gave the API specification, for example, one of my students, and I told him, build this into our PLM system so that we can connect parts and bombs to SysML v2 elements. And this is where we are at the moment. And we have much interest in this field in the way that if you're choosing a new PLM software stack at the moment, you want to be sure that your vendor is capable of future things. So most of the times we can show, or I can show, that we understand MBSE, we know what SysML is, we know what analysis and synthesis and whatever is, all the MBSE terms. And this is why people are choosing the software in the end. But to be honest, most of the customers did not start yet with MBSE. But I expect this to happen in the next 1 or 2 years.
Okay, fabulous. And Tim, what's on your? I noticed you seem to be speaking at quite a few different conferences and events. So what's your immediate future then? And you mentioned the big SysML book as well. So
I work on the big SysML book. Hopefully it will be finished end of this year. But it's really a lot of stuff. And in my calendar, well, I do a lot of consulting and training around MBSE, and with SysML v2 it's now increasing. So I'm in many exciting companies.
So is there a lot of interest at the moment in training in SysML2 then?
Yes, it's starting. So a lot of interest in MBSE in general and SysML v1, but SysML v2 is already starting. So the companies look into the language, would like to understand it, and so and well, my calendar. Next week is the OMG meeting in Reston in Washington, so I will be there. And on Wednesday this week, I gave a talk about MBSE SysML v2 for Cozy Italy online. And almost every month somewhere in SysML v2 talk, mainly in the Cozy community.
I think in May you'll also be doing one for Cozy Japan as well, because they're very keen and very welcoming. When our book was translated, we did a couple of online Cozy Japan sessions for them. So I'm sure they'll be very keen to get you involved in that as well. Which would be wonderful. Okay.
Probably a time zone challenge.
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? His time is is one of the key things. So that's brilliant then. So I'll just any final comments on the book then? And give us your final sales pitch. Why should people buy this marvelous book then, Tim and Christian? What's the why should we spend our money on this?
For sure, there is no other book available. So I'm still convinced that it is the first and the only SysML v2 book worldwide. So people don't have another chance than buying the book. No, to be honest, I think it's a really nice overview. And it was really hard to bring everything down to 55 pages, but it gives you a nice overview and also examples to try it out by yourself. So we jumped over one of the last chapters, or the amendment, the appendix, where the pilot implementations and how to use the pilot implementation is described. And you have already examples in this book by this textual notation, but all the textual notation is also available on GitHub. And you have a first example you can play around with in the pilot implementation. So everything you need to get in touch, I would say.
Something for everybody. Okay, so and the ideal gift. So Christmas, it's never too early to start thinking about Christmas. So
Yeah.
got loved ones. So, Tim, any final words? Why should we buy this book, Tim, or why should they buy this book?
Well, what Christian said, it's yeah, exactly that. It's really the absolute beginner's guide to SysML v2. So it's I think there's no other way to, well, the best way to start with SysML v2. The alternative is the specification. So I can also give you the 2,000 pages if you like.
Yes,
For free.
For free, yeah, they're for free.
Okay. Well, that's brilliant. It's always it's always a pleasure to speak to both of you. And obviously, I'm slightly biased because of my background, but a big fan of the book. So if you've got any interest in SysML2, it really is a good book. And as Tim and Christian were saying earlier, it will be updated as time goes on as well. We have absolute creative control over the content of it. So if there are things that change, we can update that in the book as well, and up a version of the book. So Tim and Christian, absolute pleasure to talk to both of you again. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll send on with, there's a number of other questions which we'll send on to you afterwards. As I said, this recording will be made available for Incosi UK via the Incosi UK website and the YouTube channel. If anybody's out there and they've been inspired to write a book, then please just get in contact with Incosi UK, with publications with Incosi UK. And if you're involved with another chapter of Incosi, or even if you're not and you're interested in translating a book, then again, give us drop us a line and let us know. Let's see it in as many languages as possible. So anyway, so thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your time, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you.